quality afternoon to all of us, and welcome again to this virtual orientation on the DepEd Order number 31 series of 2020 under the new normal. So this afternoon, we shall know, understand, and eventually implement the truth, the fact about assessment and grading during the new normal in education. So this is the East District Orientation on DepEd Order number 31 series of 2020 interim guidelines for assessment and grading in light of the basic education learning continuity plan. So I will be your learning facilitator this afternoon. Okay. So DepEd number 31 series of 2020 was issued and signed by the Secretary last October 2, 2020 to supplement the basic education learning continuity plan. It provides guidance on the assessment of student learning and on the grading scheme to be adopted this school year, and it supports learner development in response to varied contexts at this time. So this policy is anchored on the following assessment principles. One is that assessment should be holistic and authentic in capturing the attainment of the most essential learning competencies. So when we talk of holistic assessment, there is emphasis on assessment for learning and assessment of learning, and the use of appropriate methods which are a balance of quality, child-centered, and even sustainable. Another assessment principle upon which this policy was anchored is that assessment is integral for understanding student learning and development. So definitely, we should assess. And then the third principle is that a variety of assessment strategies is necessary, with formative assessment taking priority to inform teaching and promote growth mastery. The fourth principle is that assessment and feedback should be a shared responsibility among teachers, learners, and parents. And this has become more important with the modalities that we are now implementing, with the distance learning delivery modalities that we have. And the last principle is that assessment and grading should have a positive impact on learning, so that the grades that we are eventually giving our learners will really reflect the quality and the extent of learning that they have acquired at the end of an assessment period, like at the end of the quarter. Okay, so this policy will be implemented in all public elementary and secondary schools nationwide for school year 2020-2021. DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015 is still in effect, but provisions which are inconsistent with DO 31 series of 2020 guidelines are suspended for this school year. Private schools, technical and vocational institutions, and HEIs, including state universities and colleges which are offering K-12 basic education program, are encouraged to implement the interim guidelines. However, in the case of private schools and institutions, they are permitted to modify, they're also permitted to modify this policy and guidelines according to their philosophy and the vision, mission, and values of these schools, but the modified assessment shall be approved first by the DepEd regional office, by the regional director. So this is the rationale or the logical reasons and basis for the issuance of DepEd Order number 31 series of 2020. So COVID-19, the threat of COVID-19 in the country actually prompted DepEd to come up with the basic education learning continuity plan with the implementation of new learning delivery modalities, remote or distance learning, which also necessitates the implementation of new or innovative ways in terms of providing learners opportunities not to learn. And in the same way, we need to provide our learners also optimal learning experiences, and it follows that we also have to make some changes in the way we assess learning progress under these circumstances. As stated in DepEd Order Number 8 Series of 2015, the policy guidelines in classroom assessment for the K-12 basic education program, assessment should be used to inform and improve classroom practices and promote learning outcomes. However, in distance or blended learning environments, it is necessary to utilize alternate tools and strategies for assessing and supporting learning while avoiding creating undue pressure on the teachers, learners, and their families. So of foremost importance is the health and safety of our learners, our teachers, and even their families. So what does this policy cover? I have already mentioned this in the previous slides, that it shall be implemented in all public and secondary schools for this school year, and that private schools are encouraged to use the same policy guidelines, and they can also modify only if there is a permission granted by the regional office. So before we proceed, let us recall some of the important terms also provided to us in DepEd Order Number 8, Series of 2015. One is classroom assessment, which refers to the ongoing process of identifying, gathering, organizing, interpreting quantitative data and qualitative information about what learners know and what they can do with what they know. And then there are two important forms of assessment that we should consider. One is formative assessment, which involves teachers using evidence about what learners know and can do to inform and improve teaching. Teachers' immediate feedback enables students to take responsibility for their own learning and identify areas where they do well and where they need help. And this is very important with the distance learning delivery that we are implementing. There has to be immediate feedback to assist our learners. And then we have summative assessment, which is usually administered toward the end of a learning period to measure the extent to which learners have mastered the MELT. So that learning period could be at the end of the unit, or it could be at the end of a quarter. So the results of summative assessments are recorded and are used to report learners' achievement. And then grading is a way of reporting assessment data by assigning a value to the results as a record of a student's ability, achievement, or progress. Okay. So DepEd is committed to ensure learning continuity in time of crisis while looking after the health, safety, and well-being of all its learners, teachers, and personnel. So this was emphasized by our SDS in his message. That is why we're making some adjustments as regards our work arrangement in schools, particularly on activities pertaining to module distribution, module retrieval, and it will be the same as regards distribution of assessment tools and retrieval of assessment tools. Schools must adopt assessment and grading practices that can most meaningfully support student development and respond to varied contexts at this time. So it was also mentioned by SDS that gone are the days that we should only give like the traditional form of assessment. This is the very right time for us to embrace technology-driven assessment methods and approaches. And of course, this policy is anchored on the assessment principles that I have earlier presented. Teachers, school leaders, learners, and parents must commit to uphold the integrity of learning and instruction in the context of distance education. I know that you will find this very difficult these days. Integrity is even an issue during the traditional way of delivering instruction when we had our face-to-face instruction, and this has this is now becoming a very difficult challenge on all of us with the online learning environments available and open to all our learners. So on the part of teachers and on the part of learners, there are things that we should consider for us to uphold the integrity of learning, instruction, and even assessment. Issues like plagiarism, issues on pollution, and all other issues that might affect the integrity of learning, instruction, and even assessment in the context of distance learning. Now, the desired outcomes why this policy was issued are the following: to ensure that all learners are fairly assessed and graded. So it's the learners that we assess fairly, not the parents, but this is something that is really challenging these days. So in the continuation of education during health crisis, and then to emphasize that learning standards shall be attained with the provision of reasonable leniency and considerations for possible difficulties met by the learner. So we really have to consider a lot of things when we administer assessment tools because of reasons of accessibility and availability of resources, not only on the part of our learners, but also on the part of our teachers. So what are the procedures? So part of this policy highlights the procedures that we shall follow in the implementation of this interim policy guidelines. One is distance learning poses challenges for teachers and learners in the conduct of assessment, including limitations on giving feedback and the need to account for different contexts in designing, implementing, and grading assessment tasks. So to address these challenges, learners, teachers, and parents or guardians each have significant roles and responsibilities. So in the implementation of these policy guidelines, there are certain rules given to the learners, the teachers, and the parents. On the part of the teachers, for this school year, particular focus will be given to the following. One is designing the assessment to allow for flexibility, reasonable leniency in the multiple modalities. So we really have to make sound judgment as to the administration, even from the design, from the choice of assessment, the design, the administration, the distribution, the retrieval, and the vehicle by which we can deliver and administer the assessment to our learners. So this is something that we really need to look into. Second is communicating to learners and parents or guardians the design and standards for grading the assessment. So this is not something that should come to them as a surprise. This is how we assess you. But we really have to communicate to the learners and even the parents and the guardians the assessment tools that we shall use in assessing learners' progress and their attainment of the most essential learning competencies. And then on the part of the teachers, we also have to focus on setting up mechanisms to monitor. So how do we monitor if our learners are actually answering the different activities which we can use to assess assessment for learning, our formative assessment provided in the modules? And then how do you record progress remotely, especially if you don't have like internet access like those in the South District, or if you don't really know about like Google Forms, you don't know about Microsoft Excel, you don't even know how to like send assessment tools by emails, because from the results of the study, if I may share, from the results of the study Sir Noor and I conducted on the perceived digital literacy of teachers and their level of confidence on ICT integration, it turned out that 15% of the 955 teacher respondents of that research have not even used email. So I don't know who those 15% teachers are of the 955 respondents. I hope hindi naka center sa East District. And then giving timely, constructive, and relevant feedback, and facilitating remediation for learners who need further guidance. So even with the distance learning modalities that we are implementing, there is much more need for us to facilitate remediation with learners who are not coping up, who are lagging behind, always behind. So there is also a provision in this policy as to when shall remediation or intervention be conducted when we see that there are learners who consistently register very low marks in both formative and summative assessments. On the part of the learners are expected to be proactive in updating their teachers of the situation, progress, and challenges they encountered. So a non-mandatory, again, this is not mandatory. Part of the annexes in this policy is Annex E, which is the self-monitoring tool. This will be accomplished independently by the learners or with the assistance of their parents or guardians only if necessary. So this is not mandatory. However, it is not required to accomplish the self-monitoring tool again, but its usage is highly recommended to keep track of the learner's academic progress. So I think this is something that you also need to discuss with the parents. You may present this in one of your meetings with the parents. I think it's wise if you also suggest the use of this self-monitoring tool so that the learners themselves and even their parents can keep track of their learning progress. And then on the part of the parents, so they also play an important role in the implementation of this assessment policy guidelines. So one is they need to communicate with the teachers to give updates on their child's situation, progress, and challenges encountered. And they have to guide their children in accomplishing the assessment tasks and or monitor tools designed by their teachers. But we have to do this in a way that is persuasive, that is polite, because we cannot just demand this from parents. We just have to request this assistance from them as regards this part of the policy implementation. So the parents are requested to assist us in the implementation of this assessment policy by way of these two important activities: communicating to the teacher and guiding the children in the accomplishment of the assessment tasks and even in the monitoring. So how do we plan for assessment? So do not forget this. Teachers need to be creative and flexible in assessing student learning, but still adhere to the principles of quality assessment practice. So if you are used to paper and pencil tests, true or false paper and pen tests, this is high time to level up, especially for teachers who are assigned on online distance learning, digitized learning. I think you really have to level up and make use of technology-driven. We have a lot of web-based resources that you can use for assessment tools. And then assessment decisions must be made in the best interest of all learners with safety, health, and well-being in mind. So we always take into consideration our students, if they have the resources, if they have the access, and of course, their safety, health, and well-being. Teachers shall also ensure that all assessment activities, this is very important, are aligned with the MELCs. Reliable, valid, and transparent. Practical, fair, inclusive, and equitable. Practical, manageable for both learners and teachers. Our assessment activities should give learners a range, so there must be variety, in the way we assess, so that our learners are given opportunities to be able to demonstrate their learning. So we don't just fix our learners to one assessment method, but we need to give a variety of assessment tools. And then we should provide timely and accurate information as basis for feedback. So what is emphasized here is that we should give varied assessment methods and form. Now, we have to be reminded that in the implementation of the distance learning modalities, teachers need to design the assessment with the assumption that, one, learners will asynchronously take the assessment. They will not take the test all at the same time, because in a class you have students who go for online distance learning. There are students who go for printed modular distance learning. So they will not take the test or work on the assessment tools at the same time. So it's asynchronous. And learners have open access to various sources. Now, in the implementation of the DLDM, we should treat every assessment as if it were an open book. So we have to use questions that challenge students even if they use all the resources available to them. Okay, so our questions should be very challenging, such that even if all the resources are available to the students, they can still form their answers without necessarily lifting the answer from the internet. And on the part of the teachers, we should be careful in the assessment tools that we are giving, because our students can readily search for that assessment from the internet. There are teachers in the past, when we do the checking of the test paper with the TOS, we found out that there are teachers who are lifting questions for the quarterly exam from the internet, and there are also answers given from the internet source. Now, you can't possibly do that these days with assessment given and taken by the students asynchronously. They all have the luxury of searching for that assessment in the internet, and they are good at that. So to assess, is it assessment as learning, assessment for learning, or assessment of learning? What will be assessed? Will you be assessing content knowledge? Will you be assessing the performance of a skill, or the competency, or an attitude, or a value? What method would best allow learners to demonstrate what they have learned, considering their learning delivery modalities? Should you be giving paper and pencil tests? How do you translate that for online distance learning, for digital, for students who opted for digitized modules? So you really have to exercise creativity, and teachers really have to be innovative these days when it comes to assessment. Which method would make it easy to gather evidence of learners' progress over time? Are you going to use the monitoring tools as suggested in this policy? Will you be using Google Forms? Will you be using a virtual platform to be able to readily collect evidence of learners' progress over time? Will the assessment be completed individually or in groups? So when you craft your assessment, you have to consider this question. Is this assessment good for individual performance, or should this be for a group performance? Will the assessment be taken at the same time? Or we should be very creative in the way we formulate our assessment with the remote and the distance learning that we are having now. So we should treat every assessment as if it were an open book, because learners have open access to various sources. They can just simply Google that. They can just create a Google Drive link for all the classmates to see and share their answers. They can use Facebook, they can use Messenger, they can use Google Scholar. They have all the books available at home, and of course, all the family members who can help them. So this is something that is very challenging on the part of the teachers, because we need to uphold the integrity of our assessment. So questions to consider when deciding on which assessment method to use. One is, what is the purpose of the assessment? Why do we have submitted within a specific period? So you need to set the time, you need to set the deadline. And of course, you'll have to consider other factors like access and the safety, of course, the well-being of our learners and the resources available to them. How will class size affect the way the assessment will be conducted? How can technology help? So will I be using my Google Classroom? Shall I just be posting the assessment on my Google Class and have them turn in their answers to the assessment? Will I use Google Meet? Shall it be a live Q&A where I can assess the extent of their understanding of their lesson or their performance of a skill? Should I use Google Suites or tools in Google or some other LMS? So these are questions that you should consider when you choose an assessment method. So let's talk about formative assessment. In order to inform teaching and promote growth and mastery, formative assessment strategies should, letter A, establish clear learning targets and success criteria. B, elicit useful evidence of learning, something that will give teachers feedback as to which part of the instruction should be improved. And it should also be something which will provide learners and parents feedback if they are coping up with what is required in the MELTs. And then it should provide timely and effective feedback, engage learners in assessing and improving each other's work, and increase ownership of their own learning. So I was just so happy. I should share this. Thank you to the science teacher of my grade 10 daughter. Last night, I was just surprised when she shouted, "Oh, I've got 100% unique answers to maybe an activity in the module or to an activity assigned by the science teacher," because it's something that will tell us that the student really worked into the activity as of them. And when she shouted 100% unique answer, I asked, why? Did you use an application, a software to validate, to check whether you really have a unique answer? And she said, yes, ma, we're using plagiarism checker. So this is one strategy that you can actually introduce to your students, no, especially for the online distance learning, for them to have ownership of their own learning. So the plagiarism checker, Turnitin, we have a lot of software available online which will help our learners and which will help also our teachers assess if our students are giving us unique answers, not answers that are shared, not answers that resulted from their collusion, their discussions outside of your Google Classroom. So Annex A of this policy provides a matrix of sample techniques for each formative assessment strategy. Teachers are highly encouraged to adapt these techniques where appropriate and to explore other alternatives that are feasible in their respective contexts. So with formative assessment, it's about getting better. It should be specific, frequent, repetitive, and free from restrictions of grading. So we do not grade. We do not assign grade to formative assessments. The activities in the module are formative assessments. So the students will have to work on this to show to us how they are progressing, how they are meeting the expectations, the objectives. It should target skills that are necessary to the attainment of learning competencies as measured in summative assessment. So the formative assessment activities, especially those in our module, will actually help our learners meet the measured competency when summative assessment comes. The very reason why our formative assessment should already be targeting the skills which will be measured in the summative assessment. So they are related in terms of targeted content standards and targeted performance standards, but formative assessments are not graded. They are given to give feedback to the learners, to their parents, and to the teachers to improve teaching in our practice, in crafting, in administering assessment, and our lessons as well. To evaluate student learning at particular points in each quarter, we have the summative assessment. So for this policy, summative assessment shall continue in the form of written works and performance tasks. So our summative assessment during this time shall be limited to written works and performance tasks. All grades shall be determined based on these two important summative components. One, again, is written works, and the other is performance tasks. So written work shall be administered to assess essential knowledge and understanding. So it measures what students know, what students understand. If we go back to our KUD framework. So how do we assess that? Through quizzes, long exams, unit tests. So items should be distributed across the revised Bloom's cognitive process dimensions as provided to us in DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015, that's page 4, using a combination of selected response and constructed response format so that all are adequately covered. Letter B, performance task. So this is the second summative component, summative test component, summative assessment component. Performance tasks refer to assessment tasks that allow learners to show or to demonstrate what they know and are able to do in diverse ways. Again, what's emphasized here is variety of methods for learners to show and demonstrate what they can do with what they know, with what they understand. They may create, our learners may create or innovate products or do performance-based tasks. So when we talk of performance tasks, there are two important ideas here. One is process and one is product. So our learners may actually create or innovate products or do performance-based tasks, including skills demonstration, group presentations, oral work, multimedia presentation, and research projects. It is important to note that written outputs which demonstrate process, written outputs which demonstrate products may also be considered as performance tasks. So you have that in Annex B of this policy. You have the list of sample of summative assessments that fall under performance tasks. So performance tasks must be designed to provide opportunities for learners to apply what they are learning to real-life situations. This is one important factor of holistic assessment as claimed in the rationale of this policy guidelines, that we anchor this policy on assessment being holistic. It should have a relation to real-life situation. In addition, teachers should take into consideration the following. Each task must be accompanied with clear directions. Dapat may instruction how the performance is to be done. And appropriate scoring tools. This should not come as a surprise to parents from the very start. We should also already be designing performance tasks that we should be giving our learners within the quarter. And the rubric should already be part of that performance task. And this has to be communicated clearly to the students, to the parents. So our performance tasks should come with procedure or clear direction, appropriate scoring tool like checklist, rubrics, or rating scale to help learners demonstrate their learning. So Annex C of this policy provides a sample of holistic and analytic rubrics as well as sample scoring tools, other scoring tools. Teachers are advised to collaborate in terms of the design and then implement performance tasks that integrate two or more competencies within or across subject areas. So in as much as you're preparing your weekly home learning plan, from all subject areas and the learning tasks from all subject areas for a particular class, then I think this will also you can do this. You can collaborate among subject areas and create an integrated assessment, incorporating or integrating now the competencies from different subjects, from different learning areas. So doing that will simplify, and will lessen the burden on the part of our learners in terms of assessment. So complex tasks may be broken down into shorter tasks to be completed over longer periods of time. So as Annex D provides to us samples of integrative assessment tasks. Learners must be given flexibility in the accomplishment of the performance tasks to consider time and resources available to them. Please, we avoid giving performance tasks today and have that submitted tomorrow. And then, or give the performance tasks today and then have that submitted next week, but it's something that our learners can passively complete given the situation, given the distance separating them, especially if it's a group performance. So we really have to consider a lot of things when we craft or design performance tasks. Nonetheless, even with a variety of performance tasks that we shall be giving our learners, all learners within a class should be assessed on the same competencies using the same scoring tool. So teachers must exercise their professional judgment in carrying out summative assessments, providing enough opportunities for learners to practice and even to redo their work whenever necessary so that they can reach their learning targets with the least amount of pressure. Teachers should set realistic expectations and use professional judgment to find a good balance between what is effective and what is feasible to accomplish remotely. So what is emphasized in this slide is our use of sound professional judgment, keeping in mind balance between what is effective and what is feasible to accomplish from our learners' end, given the resources available to them, access issues, and the distance separating them from each other and from the teacher. So that's the end of my presentation. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for listening.
This is a continuation of district orientation on DO 31 Series 2020. My topic will be about grading and promotion from letter D, including 6 and 7. According to Funtas and Pinel, assessment is not teaching, it is gathering information for teaching. And that is very true. So let's start with grading and promotion. Section 23, it says the challenges brought to light by the coronavirus pandemic, specifically the implementation of different distance learning delivery modalities, have sparked a larger conversation about the role grades play in student learning, prompting education sectors to rethink traditional grading schemes. The grading system implemented in this interim policy provides reasonable leniency to learners. This has been already said by so many speakers who are put to a larger disadvantage by the pandemic, but at the same time does not compromise the integrity and principles of assessment and grading. Written works and performance tasks, number 24, shall be administered to assess the content and performance standards that describe the knowledge, abilities, and skills that learners are expected to demonstrate. These tasks could be designed to include the following. Letter A, students' learning portfolio that documents all in the grading period, including self-reflections, self-evaluations of performance tasks guided by rubrics, and self-selected best outputs in the learning modules. Letter B, a minimum of 4 written works and 4 performance tasks within the quarter, preferably 1 in 2 weeks, integrating 2 or more competencies. Letter C, all competencies should be covered by the performance tasks. Example, a performance task can be used to assess science, math, and English all together for certain topics. Number 25, for the current school year, quarterly assessments shall not be administered. Quarterly assessments shall not be administered. However, days allotted for quarterly assessments in DepEd Order 7 Series 2020 or the school calendar and activities for school year 2020-2021 may be used for the presentation of major performance for the quarter that addresses the performance standard. Number 26, quarterly examinations were given a weight of 20% constantly in DO number 8 Series 2015. Since it will no longer be a part of the grading system for the school year, its previously determined weight was distributed equally into written works and performance tasks, allotting an additional 10% to each component. So this means written works has been added with 10%, performance task has also been added with 10%. That is from quarterly examinations. This maintains an emphasis on performance tasks for some learning areas. Table 1 shows the weight distribution of the summative assessment components per learning area for grade 1 to 10. So there are only 2 assessment components, written works and performance tasks. For languages such as English and Filipino, Araling Panlipunan, and Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao, written works is allotted 40%, while performance tasks is 60%. For science and math, written works and performance tasks are both given equal 50% each. For MAPE, EPP, and TLE, written works is allotted 30% and performance tasks is 70%. In Table 2, we have also the weight distribution of the summative assessment components for senior high school. Still, we have 2 assessment components, written works and performance tasks. For core subjects and all other subjects in the academic track, written works is 40% and performance task is 60%. work immersion, research, business enterprise simulation, exhibit, and performance. Both written works and performance tests are given 50% each. For all other subjects in the TVL, sports, arts, and design tracks, as well as the work immersion, the research exhibit, and performance, written works is given 30%, while performance tasks is given 70%. Table 3 is a sample computation of written works and performance tasks in languages, Araling Palipunan, ESP for grade 1 to grade 10, and senior high school core subjects. So you will see in the table, there are 4 written works, which comprises 40% of the grade, and there are also 4 performance tasks, which comprises 60% of the grade. These are the highest possible scores. The total is 85. And learner A got a total score of 77. So if you add 18, 22, 20, 17, it's equal to 77. We got the percentage score of 91 by dividing 77 by 85, round it up, and then multiplying your 91 with 40% to get your 36.4%. I hope you were able to get that. In the performance task, we have also a total score of 75. And student A got a score of 59. If we add 12, 13, 19, and 15, it's equal to 59. We divide 59 by 75, round it up, we have 79. Multiply your 79 by 60%, and you have 47.4%. We add 36.4 with 47.4, and we got an initial grade of 83.8. Using the transmutation table in DO8 Series 2015, page 31, 83.8 is equivalent to 89. So the final grade, final quarterly grade of learner A is 89. Any questions? Let's go to table 4. Table 4 is a sample computation of written works and performance tasks in math and science for grade 1 to grade 10. Here, the highest possible score for written works, which is given 50%, and performance task is also 50%. The highest possible score is 85, and the score of learner A is 77. If we divide 77 by 85, round it up, the percentage score is 91. Multiply 91 by 50%, you have 45.5%. For performance tasks, the total score is 75, and the score of learner A is 59. If we add 12, 13, 19, and 15, the score is 59. We divide 59 by 75, round it up, you have a percentage score of 79. Multiply 79 by 50%, and the percentage, or the weighted average rather, is 39.5%. We add 45.5 plus 39.5. The initial grade of learner A is 85. Using again the transmutation table on page 31 of DO8 Series 2015, 85 has a transmuted grade of 90. So the final grade, final quarterly grade of learner A in math or science is 90. Table 5 is a sample computation of written works and performance tasks in MAPE, EPP, TLE for grade 1 to grade 10. Here, we still have 4 written works and 4 performance tasks. The total score for written works is 85. That is 30% of the grade. And the score of learner A is 77. So we divide 77 by 85, round up. We have 91 as the percentage score. Multiply 91 by 30%, we get a weighted average of 27.3%. For performance tasks, which is 70%, the total score is 75. Learner A got a score of 59. We divide 59 by 75, round up. He got percentage score of 79. 79 multiplied by 70%, the weighted average is 55.3%. We add 27.3% with 55.3%. We get an initial grade of 82.6. Again, we use the transmutation table on page 31 of DO8 Series 2015. 82.6 is equivalent to 89 as its transmuted grade. So the final quarterly grade of learner A would be 89. I hope that is clear. Those samples are clear. Okay, let's continue. In number 27, the transmutation table, yes, as what I have said, that is page 31, which is Appendix B in DO number 8 Series 2015, shall still be used in this grading system. The guidelines on learner's progress report, as well as on promotion and retention, shall likewise follow the provisions cited in the said policy. Letter E, the role of technology. Technology plays a substantial role in helping teachers in the development, communication, implementation, and grading of assessment tasks. A matrix of sample tools organized by low, medium, and high technology is provided in Annex G of this DO 31. So in the Annex G, you will find sample tools which are considered as low technology, like rubrics, flashcards, pop-up cards. These are low technology sample tools in assessment. The medium technology that we can find in the Annex G would be SMS, text samples, photo, voice memo, and bite-sized comics. These are examples of medium technology as stated in this Annex G. For high technology, we can use Kotobi, PowerPoint, Excel, iBooks, Edpuzzle, Squiggle, Edmodo, Google Classroom, Moodle, Schoology. These are all high technology as prescribed in the Annex G of this DepEd order. So you can look at the annexes where you can find all the sample tools, no? Considered as low, medium, and high technology. Number 6, monitoring and evaluation. Section 29, the school heads shall be primarily responsible for supervising the implementation of this policy in their schools, ensuring that the provisions are communicated to all concerned stakeholders in the community. The regional and schools division offices shall jointly monitor the compliance of schools with these guidelines. The Curriculum and Learning Management Division of the regional office and the Curriculum Implementation Division of the Division Office shall diligently collaborate with each other in ensuring that the provisions of this policy are complied with. Number 31, at the school level, the implementation of this policy shall be monitored and evaluated at least once every quarter by the school heads. The school head shall prepare a quarterly report that includes the challenges and issues encountered throughout the policy implementation. The said reports shall be submitted to the school's division office for collation and analysis. The SDOs will then prepare a biannual analysis report for submission to the regional office. Number 32, overall policy feedback from the regional offices shall be provided by the DepEd Central Office to be used in evaluating the policy for continuous improvement of its design and implementation. It will also be used in improving the design and systems of the Learning Continuity Plan, which may be useful should there be arising challenges in the future which are analogous to the COVID-19 pandemic. Number 33, such information shall be addressed to the Office of the Director 4 of the Bureau of Learning Delivery via telephone numbers written there or email. Number 7, effectivity. Section 34, this order shall take effect immediately upon its approval and shall remain in force and in effect for the duration of school year 2020-2021. This shall be registered with the Office of the National Administrative Register owner at the University of the Philippines Law Center, UP Diliman, Quezon City. Number 35, DO number 8, Series 2015, or the Policy Guidelines on Classroom Assessment for the K-12 Basic Education Program is still in effect, but its provisions inconsistent with these guidelines are suspended for the upcoming school year. I think that's all for my topic from letter D up to 7, 6, and 7. Thank you very much. Keep safe, everyone. God bless.